Hello, everybody. Welcome. We're gonna get started. Still people joining online, but make a start anyway. So first of all, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of this land, which we meet on today, and pay my respects to the elders, past and present. It's a pleasure to be here today to welcome you all and to have Lucy from Study Work Grow talk about the future of jobs and how AI is shaping that future. I would like to just make a quick announcement first. So we have the Impact NX simulator. So for entrepreneurs and businesses who are looking, who have an idea, who want to build their own business or have some sort of innovative, startup idea, we are doing the simulator in Townsville, and you can still apply online. We haven't chose the applicants yet, but we're about 2 weeks away from picking who are the applicants. So if you are interested or you have friends in Townsville that are innovative and don't stop talking to you about their next idea, please share that the simulator is happening in the start of July. So we got Lucy here from Study Work Grow. Lucy is the founder of Study Work Grow. She has an immense career in helping students figure out what they should be doing at university and helping them choose the right career path for them. I'll hand you over to her to talk a little bit more about what she does and talk a little bit about how AI is impacting the future of our employment. Cool.
Thank you. Thanks, Omar. Everyone can hear me. I see people have notebooks. So that's a really good sign if you can take some notes. Normally when I give this session, I give it to educators or students who have very little idea about AI. If anything, they think that AI is pretty much ChatGPT. So this is a slightly different environment here. I know that your levels of understanding of AI and how it works and what it can be used for is quite different to my normal cohort. So I've changed the presentation, but just be aware that you might actually know more about the AI aspect of this conversation than I do, because I'm a career development expert, not an AI expert. So a bit about my background. I am a career counsellor by trade. I have worked with the National Career Institute as a career counsellor. I've worked at JCU as a career counsellor, and I also run my own company. We provide career education resources to about 1,400 schools, universities, TAFEs, and other organisations in 43 countries around the world. So we have quite a large scope, but we mainly focus on that youth kind of angle. So this is often a very popular topic. So in this session, we're going to be talking about a few things. We're going to start by looking at how we can put AI into perspective and get our heads around what impact it might have on the workforce. We're also going to look at how AI might impact certain jobs. So we'll look at some case studies and see how it's more than just AI. We're also going to think about what the future might look like, because it's one thing to know what might happen today, but another thing entirely to think about what the world might look like in 5 or 10, 15 years. And often when we're making career decisions, we're not really making short-term career decisions, they're quite long-term decisions. So we need to think a little bit ahead. And then we're going to look at what we can do about this at the end. So first up, let's get some perspective. Like I said, you're a different audience to normal. Normally when I talk to people, they're petrified about AI and that it's going to come and take all of their jobs. Is anybody overly worried about AI taking their jobs here, or are you all excited by what it might bring? Yeah, different. It's quite a different, pardon me? Bring it on, yes. So it's slightly different to sort of the general population, but at the same time, it's also a good idea to bring things back into perspective and remember that there's a lot of hype. There are a lot of reports that are being published trying to hypothesize about what the future of work might look like due to AI. And often when you kind of dig into these reports, they're based on either a really small segment of users, or they're looking at some very odd, like they've made some very large claims about some very interesting things. So there is a lot of hype, and we need to remember to put it all in perspective. Now, one of the main things I like to talk about when we talk about AI and the future of work is that what we're actually expecting is augmentation, not automation. So we will see some things be automated, We've already seen a lot of things be automated by technology. There's nothing new about that. I don't know if anybody watched that figure robot on YouTube the other day processing the parcels, flipping them all over. And like we've had machines that can scan from all four sides for years. Like that's not necessarily going to take those kind of jobs. What we are seeing is augmentation, and augmentation is where people are able to use AI to either take on a routine role that they already do within their job set, or to allow them to do more new, more difficult, more complicated things, or things that might take a bit more time so that you can do the work better. And augmentation is predicted to be far more common than automation. So there are a few reports that are out. Microsoft have one. Anthropic have an Anthropic Economic Index, I think it is, AEI, that they've published. And when you go onto those tools, you can actually see that for each job, they've broken it down into the percentage of tasks they think can be handled by automation and the percentage of tasks they think that can be augmented. And by and large, augmentation is really what we're looking at. Automation can only take control of quite a small set of tasks, whereas it can take on a lot of augmentation roles. And augmentation needs humans. So we can't really be augmenting something and sending it all off to AI. We're also going to need humans to be able to interpret whatever AI is producing, to be able to think critically about whether or not it's actually accurate and relevant, to be able to implement it. And we're also expecting that the jobs that require human skills are less likely to be impacted at all by AI. So if it requires a human to get involved, you're probably not going to need, they're not going to be able to lose the entire job. A really good job. Donna's sitting here. She's a fantastic lawyer. And I often talk about lawyers in terms of what AI can do, because AI can come in and it can augment lots of different things that Donna does, but it can't really talk to humans properly, and not about complex things and when there's emotions involved and negotiations need to happen. And now we're still going to need humans to do those things. Okay, so augmentation will turn up in one of generally three ways. The first is with expansion of roles. So when we talk about expansion of roles, it means that you're doing the same thing, but you can do it for more clients. You can do it in more complex ways. You can take on more jobs and get more done because you've used AI to augment your role and to expand what you can take on. If you've been following the DeepMind project that they're doing, they're sequencing DNA strands. It used to take a PhD student an entire PhD to document one of these strands. Now they can do it in about a day using AI, which is great because what that means is that those scientists can then work on bigger things using that data rather than having to spend an entire PhD just to document one strand of DNA. The next way that we think that augmentation is going to change the workforce is with hybridization. And what I mean by that is that at the minute, we have a lot of situations where there are small teams of maybe 2 to 4 or 5 people who are taking on a project and running that project together. We believe that in the future, we'll have a situation where more people can take on different roles alongside their main role, and your role will become more of a hybrid of 2 or maybe 3 roles. So seeing that a little bit with, say, a graphic designer might feel more confident now actually building a website. So instead of just doing a wireframe and then handing that off to someone else to develop, they might be able to use AI to also help develop a mock-up of that website or go a little bit further. I have a suspicion that this is what we're going to see a lot of going forward. So a lot of people being able to take on different things that they couldn't do before and then unlocking opportunities for people. And I also think we're going to see some new specializations created. So we have people who help small businesses work out workflows, AI workflows that can automate some of their processes. That's a role that didn't necessarily exist before in that format. We have a whole stack of different roles that are related to how to use AI, what you can use it for. So we're expecting that as well as that expansion of role and hybridization of role, we're also going to see new things emerge. And some of you are probably working in that space already, where you're already doing something that you couldn't have done prior to AI. And what all this means is that I see it not as an industrial revolution. Yes, it might look like that. We might have a changed workforce after this. But what we're really talking about is a reorganization of the way we do things. And we're seeing different ways of working. So people are able to work in different ways than they did in the past. And it'll also be creating this demand for different combinations of skills and knowledge. So different groups of people working together to achieve different things and work on different projects in different ways, rather than wholesale replacing an entire sector of the labour market with automated or machines. So 2 really quick examples. We have prompt engineers who are able to bring together everything from copywriting. They have to understand an audience and a consumer. They have to have domain knowledge of whatever it is that they're writing prompts for. And they're bringing multiple different roles together that you would have had previously separately. Or clinical informatics. So we have a lot of data being brought into healthcare sectors now. Nurses are able to process that data, understand that data, and use it in different ways, doctors as well, that they couldn't do before. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is how we can actually predict the future of work. So obviously, if I'm here talking to you about AI and the future of work, I'm going to be making some predictions about what we think that might look like. I don't really know. None of us really know what is going to happen in the future. All that we can do is look at the evidence that we have in front of us and make some educated guesses about what that might look like. And I don't know if you've seen the futures cone before. I know it's used in quite a few domains, but when we talk about predicting the future, it's very easy to think about what happens close to where we currently are. But as we get further into the future, and when we're talking about careers, we're often talking about things that might be relevant still right down the other end of that cone. It becomes a lot more difficult to actually predict what the future might look like. So as my educated guess, I think that within the next couple of years, we're going to see more widespread adoption of LLMs. I know it's difficult in this room to imagine that there are people out there who don't use AI in some capacity, but there are a lot of people who don't even want to touch it, who think it's this dirty, horrible thing, and who are scared to even write one prompt. So I've heard that from a lot of educators. They're being asked to write prompt examples, and they don't even want to do that. So I think that it's going to take a little while for this kind of technology to become more commonplace outside of environments like this, where everybody is comfortable and excited about new tech. Along with that, I have a feeling we're going to have stronger rules. I don't know if anybody saw the Pope yesterday spoke about AI, and that was, if you want to Google that, if you haven't read it, it was quite a statement from the Pope about his thoughts on what we should be doing and what we should be thinking about in the future. And I think that we're going to see people talk more about quality control. So not just so excited to see whatever it might produce, but like, let's try and bring a little bit of QA into this. Let's try and have some boundaries and some rules about what we think good AI use looks like. In the next 5 years, some of you are already probably working on this, but we're going to be probably talking more agents than things like LLMs. People might be comfortable using agents, or they might already have agents working in their lives that they don't even necessarily know that that's what they're doing. They've just signed up to some service that runs an AI agent for them in the background. I think we're going to be seeing more hybridization of jobs. So as people, it's going to take people a little while to work out what they can do beyond what they've been trained for as their core speciality. That's not something that happens overnight. But you'll see people who get frustrated at, I can't hire somebody to do this thing, or I can't find someone in my team who's capable of this thing. So I'm just going to go and learn how to do it myself. Or I'm just going to go and acquire that skills and knowledge to be able to take on that role myself. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And I also think that we're going to see a bit of a move towards skills-based hiring, as those qualifications that are provided by institutions like JCU need to be supplemented by other skill-based evidence as well. Thinking a little bit further ahead, it is really difficult to put this kind of thing out there because we just don't really know what it's going to look like in 10 years' time. If you asked me 10 years ago what we would look like in 2026, I do not know if I would have said that this is where we would be. So take it with a grain of salt. But at the same time, when we make career decisions, we do often think 10 years in the future. Like we are thinking, if I make this change in my career, is this going to be a long-term change? So it's worth thinking about it a little bit. I think we're going to see much more stackable learning occur. There's going to be more ways to learn throughout your life. So if you need a new skill, you can go and get that. There are companies like Go1 right now who are working on that as a particularly thorny problem, seeing how we can activate people to learn while they're working throughout the lifespan. We're going to see things like connected systems coming in more and more as well. And then when we think way, way, way into the future, 20 years from now, we don't really know what that's going to look like, but it could be that we see situations where regular employment as we know it is gone. That's probably not a huge shock to the people in this room, but often when I talk to teachers or to students, the idea that they might not have a job, that somebody else is employing them and they're getting paid for, is quite revolutionary. But it could be that we have a situation where most of us actually work on contracts, work for ourselves. Human skills, so complex human skills like the ability to communicate, the ability to think critically, the ability to be innovative, because AI isn't capable of, it's only got what has happened in the past to work from. It can't generate anything new in terms of new ideas. Those skills are going to be really highly sought after. And instead of necessarily seeing a world where we have key transition points, like you leave school, you leave university, you go get a job, you move to a new job, I think we're going to also see more of this consistent transition. So you might be working on one role while you're thinking about what you're going to do next. You might also be networking and building your connections so that you can be alert to what other opportunities are going to come for you in the future. So in order to put this into a bit of context, I've put together some case studies. And this is based off the data that we have run using our own internal skills systems that map real world jobs to what the data is telling us about the kind of tasks that AI can actually take and what that might look like in practice. So the first one we've got is Marcus. He's our HR advisor. HR advisors do a lot of work with people, but they also do a lot of routine work where they are maybe working within recording and working within systems. The data is showing at the minute that around half of the jobs that Marcus does, or the tasks that Marcus does, could be done with the help of AI. So not given to and handled by AI, but AI could be brought in to assist with about half of those tasks. What that means, or what that translates to, is around a quarter of his time could be freed up by what AI could take on. So that might mean that Marcus can look after more clients, or he can do a better job of looking after those clients, because it's very common that people feel like they don't have enough time to do the work they would like to do properly. So that might be some of the ways that we see a job like that changing. B, who's a chef, on the other hand, so much of her role is hands-on, it is practical in the kitchen, it is working in a team, that it's very difficult for AI to come in and really do a lot there. On that surface level, what it can do is work in the back office. It can do things like manage stock. It can handle things like social media content for restaurants, but it can't necessarily do a whole heap in the kitchen. Like, she's not going to be able to outsource cooking for 150 people every night to AI. At this stage, you never know, maybe in the future. But yeah, probably not. If we have Sam, who's a pharmacist, we're already seeing automated systems and artificial intelligence quite strongly turn up within the pharmacy. I don't know if you've ever been to the pharmacy and seen, a lot of them have those back rooms now, and you can see the robot that goes along and picks the medicines out of the racks. So tools like that we're seeing, tools that handle automated scripts. So now if you get a script, it comes on your phone, being able to do all those things. But what that means is that for the pharmacist, they can spend less time worrying about that kind of repetitive work, checking the records, going to get stuff off the shelves, and instead can have better conversations. And we're already seeing the outcomes of that, because we're seeing pharmacists now be able to take on things like vaccinations routinely. They can now prescribe some medications for some cases. So we're already seeing their role become a bit more hybrid. They're taking on some things that would normally be assigned to a community nurse or to a doctor. Gemma, who's a real estate agent. Once again, we can see that some of those back-end tasks can be handled by AI. I have heard, and I don't know if anybody knows more than me, but I have heard that the real estate companies, Domain and Real Estate, are all trying desperately to build AI into their systems and competing with each other at the minute. Yep, thank you. So I expect that we will see some changes in real estate, but at the end of the day, you want to buy your house from a human. You know, you need a human to be able to go in and do that inspection on your rental property, or, you know, whether you're renting or whether you own that, you still need a person to go and do that work. We're still going to need real estate agents. It might just be that Gemma can take on more clients. She can do a better job with the clients that she has. She could maybe serve a wider population. Riley, who's a graphic designer. Now, I have a graphic designer on my staff, and I have tried to use AI to generate things that we use, but our brand is so important to us that we use a human to do our graphic design in 99% of the cases. I know there are people in Cairns working on tools that might make it easier for us to use AI to actually design things, and lots of people have used Claude's new, what's it called, Claude Design. Has anybody used that? I played around with it once and it looked very generic, so I left it alone. But we might see that. But when you're talking about professional graphic designers, it's not like they worked with everyone anyway. They tended to work with people who wanted quality. And I don't think we're going to see that change in a hurry, because we're still going to need quality. The whole point of good graphic design is it grabs attention, and you need a human to be able to do that. I can see Omar going. Last one, Hamid, as a translator. So translation is often one of those things that if you read those reports from Microsoft or Anthropic, they all say to you, oh yes, we're going to take over translating content for people. They do it. There are some great multilingual models out there right now, and they can do a really good job of translating. But the thing that they're missing with that is that a translator is so much more than just handling a little bit of communication. And often in the situations where you need a translator, you actually need a human to do that job. So translators are crucial within the justice system. They're crucial in our healthcare systems. And all of those places, we're not going to enter into a situation where you're going to be able to trust that conversation to an AI tool anytime soon. Maybe one day, but I don't believe that will happen anytime soon. And if anything, we're seeing translators be valued for what they can bring to that process and that conversation. And the last kind of real point to remember with any of these case studies, and also with your own careers, is that the core purpose of your role will still be required, will still remain, right? So we have needed people who could provide healthcare for millennia. We've needed people who can communicate information to other people for, you know, a very, very, very long time. These things aren't going to go away. So whatever the core purpose of your job is, that will still exist no matter what AI does to it. And somebody or something will need to still provide that. And probably there'll be a human involved in that process. Okay, so what do we need to do about it? Now, like I said, I don't know how you're feeling. I don't know if this has made you feel better or made you feel more concerned or whatever, but there are some things that we can do to prepare ourselves for this. And a lot of the time, it's not even a thing you have to do. It's just more of an awareness. And to be honest with you, if you're sitting in this room today, then I'm probably preaching to the converted. It's the people who aren't sitting in rooms like this and who aren't paying attention who are going to struggle the most. If you're here, it's a sign you're probably going to be on top of it and be fine. So the three things that we can talk about to prepare ourselves for the future. The first one is to remember that it's all about the context of the situation. So when we're reading these reports and they look a bit scary and they're telling us that these jobs are going to be obsolete in a few years' time, read the methodology that they used, look at what they looked at, and then try and work out if they're actually talking about your job or if they're talking about something else entirely. A lot of the data that is coming out at this stage from all of the major players, it's not able to separate when a task is being brought by like a personal task or a professional task. So when you read the data, it conflates all of these people asking about, you know, what's this weird green thing on my toe? Or how do I build a health and fitness routine? It's putting all of those in the same bucket as professional tasks. So it says things like, oh, well, we're not going to need fitness trainers anymore because everybody's going to go and create their own fitness routine on ChatGPT. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen, which is why we need to remember the context whenever we're reading these articles or seeing this news. The second thing is that we need to really keep looking for opportunities and be excited about what is coming, be open to new ideas, go and learn. So if there's a piece of technology that you're curious about but you haven't had a play with yet, I mean, that's one of the best things of AI is that we can have a play with it. We can sign up to Claude or whatever it is you want to sign up to and say, teach me about this and walk me through the process. So we can start to be prepared for those opportunities and accept them as they come towards us. And the last one of the three things that we can do is to really build broad skills. So for a really long time, everyone was taught the best thing you can do for yourself is to specialize, to go very, very, very deep into your little particular niche and really carve out your little role there. And that will be the best thing for your career. We all got taught that. That's what I got taught in school. Donna's laughing. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that there won't still be a place for that, but I think that we all need to be aware that we're going to need broad skills. So whatever we can do to build our human skills, the ability to network, the ability to communicate with people is going to be so powerful. The ability to think critically about what we're using rather than just accept it blindly. Those skills are already in demand and they're going to be even more in demand. And if you can find a way to go and build that skill and then prove that you've built that skill, going back to that stacked online constant learning credentials process, that's going to really serve you well in the long term because you will be more agile and more able to take up new opportunities that might, from some of those places that might have been displaced. Okay, so that was my presentation, just 30 minutes. If you'd like to learn more about me and what I do, you can follow me on LinkedIn. I'm often there talking about the future of work and careers and different things. But I'm also happy for questions.
I'll walk around with the mic if anyone has any questions. Just lift your hand up and I'll come to you. Anyone? Yes. Just so people can hear us online.
You didn't touch on trades.
Yes, well, I did because B is a chef. So we do.
I'm on physical. I do your floor coverings and all that sort of thing. I work on boats and all that sort of thing. So where do you think AI is going to go with, your chippies, your sparkies, floor covering people?
I have a suspicion that we're going to see the same sort of patterns emerge across anything. So we're already seeing any tradespeople are probably using some sort of automated platform to handle their accounts, to send out their invoices, to manage their clients. And then on an actual tool level, we're already seeing more tools coming on board that don't necessarily look like, they're not on LLM, you're not having a conversation with them, but they're using AI. So I've heard about, and you probably know more than me, but I have heard that there are developing ways to create smart houses that can have little sensors throughout your house that alert you when something's going wrong, whether that's on your plumbing or your electrical systems and that kind of thing.
In Western Australia, they're actually building houses with robots, laying bricks that takes 3 months. They're doing it in a week, that sort of thing. I think our industry will have robots in it within the next 10 years. That sort of stuff, doing just mundane stuff.
Yeah. And we kind of, to some extent, I kind of welcome that. Like I don't know if anyone's seen the 3D printed houses. I absolutely love those. Because we don't have enough tradespeople. It's not as if we're living in a world where we have this surplus of tradespeople who are going to be displaced. We can't build the homes that we need today. It's very difficult to find a tradesperson to come in and do any work. So hopefully some of these things will come in, take the less appealing tasks, the ones that end up with arthritis in your old age, the ones that end up in situations where people aren't enjoying their work. Let's give some of those tasks to machines and robots and AI so that we can do the good stuff more.
Thank you.
That's all right.
I see another question in the back. Thank you.
I know that you're talking about the future of work with AI. I'm wondering how you factor into your predictions breakthroughs in hardware as well, because you're talking about 3D printed houses, but you could 3D print the parts that the person brings to the job site, which is a huge one. Or, for example, medical translators, X-ray glasses, where I've seen some of the medical translation that's happening even right now, and I feel like there could be a point where you don't actually need the human in the room, that the doctor and the patient could have a conversation that bypasses another human to translate at a certain point. So I'm just wondering how you factor in the hardware leaps and bounds that might happen into just the pure AI algorithm part of it.
I mean, it comes back to the same sort of thing, really. Like, what you're talking about is, will advances in medical technology mean that we don't necessarily need a practitioner to be in the equation for a person to get healthcare? There are so many situations around the world where we do not have a doctor or a nurse or a practitioner in that location able to provide healthcare. Massive regions in the third world, anywhere where there is a conflict zone, you have risks of bringing in medical professionals. So, like, from that perspective, I see it as a good thing, whatever we can do to keep people safe while providing more healthcare to more people. And then at the same time, like, I don't think there are many doctors who, are at Cairns base who would tell you, oh, no, I haven't got enough to do. I've got all this spare time. I'm worried I'm going to lose my job because I'm not, providing services anymore. Most medical practitioners are working as hard as they can. They don't have enough hours in the day or enough staff to do the support at the level they would like to. So when we see these technologies being brought in, what my hope is that we'll actually see people freed up to be able to provide better care overall. So they're not necessarily going to lose their jobs. They'll just be maybe providing better care to more people because they are supported with this augmenting technology. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not arguing with I'm totally on your page that a lot of the people and in some ways the tasks we need to automate the most are the highest skilled ones, where people's capacity is the biggest obstacle, and therefore it's also the most financially profitable to automate or augment those positions. I think I'm more thinking through, like, how do you factor that into your models of predictions of, like, the percent of work that will exist for a certain job. And I agree, reskilling people or reusing people with translatable skills will be a huge thing in the future, which I think retraining is hugely fascinating to me, how we're going to do it as a society or have more transitions. But I think I'm just wondering, like, from a practical standpoint, do you just look at the AI or do you build in the hardware as well in those leaps?
Yeah, so in the data that we've produced, we have looked at the whole range of tasks that individuals take. A lot of the Microsoft reports, so we have access to different data. We have access to data that comes from the Australian government that tells us what tasks people are doing at work across the board. The Microsoft reports and the Anthropic reports, all they can see is what people are bringing to a chatbot. So if it's not brought to a chatbot, they can't see it and they can't factor it into their data. When we're saying we think that 27% of a person's time might be freed up, I have no idea. And it would be different for one person sitting in this role and another person sitting over there. And in any case, I greatly doubt that 27% of time freed up is ever going to look like they turn up and they can now have a 4-day work week. Like, it's not going to suddenly be, oh, I'm going to go tomorrow to 27% of my time freed up. We'll see it'll happen gradually, and we'll see people be able to do more bigger things. So when we do talk to, I spoke last week with Dr. Tame Bagade, who is the head of medical admissions at University of Newcastle, and asked him about how AI is helping with his role. And what he was talking about is that now professionals at his level are able to use AI to get a second opinion on a diagnosis. So they can give some information to the software, and it is a model. And that model can say, yep, based on this, your diagnosis is great. Or actually, you've forgotten that it might be this. Do you want to test for this too? So we're not going to see those people out of work. We're just going to see them using it to supplement their roles. And I would love to tell you exactly how, but I can't, because we just don't know what that will look like.
Is there any other questions in the crowd? Just lift your hand. No? Any questions online? Yeah.
And just to John's point, we met John last week in our connectivity cafe we hosted downtown, which was amazing for Small Business Month, Queensland Small Business Month of May. And we happened to put our sign out at the front of where we were at the Tropic Hub with Lucy. And we met John and his business partners because he was in the same industry park. But what was quite interesting was chatting to John's team and how they're thinking about how do we retain skills and knowledge set, because John's about to retire and your daughter Sharon's stepping in. And we had that conversation with Sharon about how do we retain John's brain, his skill set, his knowledge into that, business. And we had some discussions about building a large language model or small language model, about all the skill set and knowledge that John has up in his brain, and how we retain that. And I wondered, Lucy, if you had some other thoughts and insights around that, loss of knowledge and skill set and how we can actually leverage AI in the workforce. Thanks.
Yeah, it's a good question and a really thorny problem, because we do have a lot of industries where the population is getting towards retirement age, and we're going to lose a huge amount of embedded knowledge in quite a short period of time. So it is a concern. What you just described, Sam, is exactly the approach that people should be taking. It's going, well, we have these tools now that are able to digest and remember and process huge amounts of information. So how do we take the knowledge that John has and put that in some sort of format that can be read by a model or an LLM? There are people doing it with memory palaces. I'm not sure if you've heard what a memory palace is, but there are a few tools now. People who are using Obsidian, which is another open source platform to retain all of their knowledge. I've built a memory palace for myself using Anthropic, where I just dump all of my papers, everything I've written, all of my speeches into the one place to get it to read it and summarize those things. So when I'm like, oh, I had this thought 2 years ago and I can't remember what it was, I can ask and it can go and find through. It's like a human wiki, basically. So these kinds of tools exist. And I think that if we're creative and we think about what it is, and it might be as simple as sitting down and dictating. And just getting someone to sit with people like John who have this vast amount of knowledge and just saying, walk me through what you would do in this situation. Dictate it all, put it into a system that's able to parse it, able to summarize it and store it in a way that can be retrieved in the future. And then you're creating another human wiki. Does that make sense? And I'm sure there are other approaches to this. That's just mine.
We got it.
Where he's sort of working on an app where I can talk into it and it will go across and take the specifications and the standards and link it to my knowledge and because what my knowledge is doesn't always agree with that. And when they do the standards, you can drive a semi-trailer through your standard, but I've got this knowledge in between.
Yep.
And he's working on, I think, a thing of joining the whole three things together and creating the knowledge that I have for my daughter to be able to go back when I decide to not be part of the business.
That's excellent. Yep.
We got two more questions online. One from Shane Pointing. We know him, he's a part of our community here. Thanks for the presentation, Lucy. How do you think future employment contracts will change regarding IP with the use of generative AI?
Oh, I feel like there's a lot of pressure asking me that with Donna in the room. Donna's an IP lawyer, if you don't know. So in my uneducated opinion, I think that contracts are already case by case. People have sort of tolerance for what they're willing to accept in a contract and what they're not willing to accept in a contract. I think we need to be very careful in the way we write our contracts and also who we send our information to. I have had people that I work with upload my content to Copilot and then send me their summary and say, what do I think of this? That's fine if it's publicly accessible content. I don't want to be sending anyone anything that I don't want public and somebody uploading that online. So all these are things that we need to be thinking about in our contracts. And then if you're talking about an employment contract, so if we're going to take on a project for someone else and we may be writing a contract for that, we would want to be thinking about if you do this work, do I own the IP? Does the company own the IP? Does the chatbot own the IP? What happens if I put information into that chatbot? And then where does it go from there? And where might I see it emerge? So, well, I don't think there's a one size fits all. And I'm hoping that's what Donna would say. Great.
Would you like a compliment, Donna?
I think you hit the right 2 points there.
Okay.
I would just call them different things. IP and I guess indemnities or liabilities around what are you using and are you genuinely creating new intellectual property in whatever service you're providing? And if you're taking things from elsewhere, indemnify me. If you're actually infringing third-party IP. If it's pure AI generated stuff that's spitting out, the copyright's not going to subsist. Machine is not a human. Thus far, the prompting is not enough human intellectual effort to make copyright subsist. So terms around what are you providing me and do you have the right to provide that to me and what elements will I own the copyright in once I pay you and you assign it to me? And the other element which you mentioned, which is really important, is governance. So being really clear around here's my expectations in terms of what kind of AI you might use and what you might put into it and what you can tell it and what you can draw from it and just some rules around keeping your information and your data safe and also kind of limiting the risk of whatever's spitting out being wrong or rubbish.
Yeah.
So governance in the copyright.
I think probably the only other thing I'd add to that is more from an employment point of view is employers have very different opinions about AI. Some expect you to use it and want you to be capable of doing that. Others do not want you to touch it, and like that might be in your employment contract that you don't use it at all. If you have something like that in your employment contract or in your contract for work, if that's what you've got, I think abiding by those contracts and making sure that we are not using AI. If we've said in our contract, this will all be generated by a human, not using AI, because that's going to be a slippery slope, I think, in the future. Going right back to that quality control point right at the start, if somebody has put that in a contract, it needs to be abided by.
Have a lot of engagement coming in online, a lot of questions. We'll try to answer them all within the time, but if we can, we're sorry. So the next question is from Felicity. Hey, Lucy, in the context of greater emphasis on demonstrating skills and abilities, how do you foresee the traditional university landscape of teaching and learning responding? Both teaching and learning responding.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing universities take different approaches. Some universities are saying, how can we make more learning available to more people in different ways that suit those people? Other universities are going a bit more old school and saying, no, we just want to be an old university and we do the same things that we've always done at that standard that we've always done it. So I don't think there's a one size fits all approach here in terms of how a university will respond. And I mean, JCU is a good example of that. We're seeing huge like governance level changes in terms of how they engage with industry and how that gets brought then into the education itself and into those courses. The government at the minute is working really, really hard on a micro-credentials framework and program. They're trying to encourage everyone to get on board that, so that will help us with the stacked learning approach. Everyone will use the same system. Everyone's qualification will be interoperable. You could break it down. So it might be that you don't need to necessarily come in and do a whole degree anymore. You could come in and just pick up those units and they will still count. Even you don't need a piece of paper, you can still get a transcript for those units. So I have a suspicion that that's what we'll see some of the universities do. Some of them won't because they're stubborn, but some will.
Kind of like that. It sounds like it will become more efficient with what you actually need for executing a task in your employment. I got another question from Joe. Could you please talk about potential possible impacts on school-based learning, particularly for the younger children in primary schools?
Skill-based learning?
Yes, school-based. Impacts on school-based learning, particularly for the younger children in primary schools.
Yeah, so same deal again. And I think that from a career point of view, so I work with secondary school students and sometimes with primary school students when I'm lucky enough to do so. We're building our careers our whole lives. So the skills that we're building in school are the ones that we're going to use later on in our life, right? And so if we come from that perspective, if we have a workforce where the majority of people are either working with or alongside or adjacent to AI and technology in some capacity, we need an education system that is also allowing them to play with those tools, gain experience, think critically about the outputs. And some education institutions are doing that really, really well, very forward thinking, looking at how they can change assessment models. So how can we adjust an assessment model so a student isn't necessarily being asked to produce an essay out at the home? They can produce something else that is more fun to, I mean, I don't know, who likes writing essays? Like, I don't like writing essays. So more fun to do, but also a better form of assessment, a better tool for actually assessing the learning that has taken place. So if you're interested in the education side of things, is it Joe?
Yes.
There is a lot of literature and a lot of discourse online about how we can change AI. There's Matt Easterman is in Sydney. He's probably the person I would follow on LinkedIn for that particular topic.
Oh, fantastic. Last question online. Hi, Lucy. How are universities approaching the future of AI with tertiary education, where many roles will now become quite obsolete? Did you want to add anything to that, Melissa? Sorry. No? Okay. So is it likely that these kind of degrees that will be automated, augmented before students complete their degree? Like, is there a fear of like those jobs becoming obsolete before they actually get out of?
No, well, my position is that we're not going to see a whole job become obsolete. And I also think that it's very easy to fall into this narrow view of what a university provides in terms of like a piece of paper and some classroom learning. Universities do things like build networks, which are hugely important to your career success. It's probably one of the most influential factors in whether or not you succeed is how well you can network. And because every time you network, you put opportunities in front of yourself. University gives you the opportunity to do that. I think that it's clear that there are going to be other ways that people can pick up learning, and that in some instances, universities, because of their processes, have to move slower than individuals can, and maybe even organizations can. But I don't think we're going to enter into a world where the other benefits of university disappear. They're still going to exist, and it's still going to be worth doing that alongside whatever other kind of learning you would like to do.
Fantastic. That's all the questions online. Any final? We got room for maybe a final question. Anyone? No? Right. At the back? Okay. Just one. One more.
Hi, Pia from Grieger AI. Thanks for your talk so far. I just was wondering if you were willing to talk about any concerns you may have for now and the future with people, including yourself, using publicly available AI, and the fact that your IP and your data and your thoughts and your strategies are going through multiple public company servers, and their new policies are that they can take any of that data and train their AI, and it's actually being spat out in other people's answers. So how do you see the future evolving in that regard?
So from a holistic AI point of view, I think there are probably lots of other people who are speaking, probably legal people who are speaking about that particular topic in terms of who owns what knowledge, what happens when you upload a business plan or you use ChatGPT to help you create a business plan. Will that business plan also appear to everyone else who's doing the same thing? I think there are a couple of things to remember from a career or a business point of view. And the first is that usually the idea isn't the thing that's most valuable, it's the execution. So, 20 people might have the same idea, but if you're the one who actually goes and executes that and makes that happen, chances are you're probably going to be ahead. So, a lot of my content through my platform goes out via PDFs to schools all around the world. I know that other people take that content. I see copies of my stuff. I see copies of my posters all over the place. I am faster than them and my content is better than theirs. So my moat is strong enough that it doesn't really impact on my ability to generate profit or generate revenue. So I know it would be ideal if we could safeguard these things, and be sure that our ideas stay to our ideas. And there are more technical ways you can do that, like, keeping things on your local server rather than necessarily sending them off, or maybe don't use AI to discuss your most valuable ideas. Like, just leave that as a human process like we have done for millennia. But at the same time, if you're building something and you're willing to execute it, you're probably ahead of everyone anyway.
Ooh, that brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much for your experience, for your knowledge, for coming here, for sharing it with everyone here. Thanks, Lucy. Let's give a hand to Lucy from Study Work Bro. Before I hand over to close up the session to Dr. Samantha, I just would like to mention that all our events are available on the Impact NX websites. The next session is really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's about crypto and AI bots. So we have someone that really knows about this topic and is going to tell us where we're at with it. And for the investors in the room, definitely a session you don't want to miss. All right, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Samantha to close up the session. Thank you.
Sorry, you're going that way.
Thanks again, Lucy. Great session. So really great insights. And I think what we'd like to also learn from you is last year, the World Economic Forum put out that skills report. And I think you alluded to it in your session today, those 3 core human skills that we really need to develop and work on. And I'm curious to have continue conversations around this. So that's creativity, critical systems thinking, and collaboration. And we do that well as humans. And AI hasn't caught up yet, right? So I think that's a great, strong message from today's session. And I think that we can continue to have those conversations when we bring in the human in the loop and also our AI bite. So thank you for highlighting that. I think it's important for each connectivity cafe. So as we conclude today, I'd also like to extend thanks to our mentors that are in the room. So we've got legal in residence, Donna, if you'd like to continue to have a conversation. As we humans do, collaboration is important. So we have Donna Patani here as legal expertise in residence. I'd also like to introduce Hillary and also James. You've got your green shirt on again. Finance in residence is James, and Hillary is investor in residence. So while you're here and we're all humans, let's have a great conversation and see how we can help each other and build each other's ventures, especially if you're a founder. Another plug for tomorrow night. We're leading a really interesting, as a nice sort of segue into what we're up to in the Novotel tomorrow evening between 5 and 7 as part of some workplace data. We're also leading AI in healthcare, looking at capability and sustainability in healthcare with Dr. Vin, who's in our portfolio, Donna and Hillary, myself and Adam. We're going to be running another panel. So if you feel like another dose of this conversation, please join us tomorrow night at the Novotel. And the last one was, I have free day passes as a result of our Connectivity Cafe downtown. Lucy has given us some day passes for anyone who'd like to go and utilize the Tropic Tech Hub that's down in CBD. So thanks, everybody. Stick around for some conversations, and let's give another round of applause to Lucy. Thank you to our online guests, and look forward to next week, Connectivity Cafe. Thank you.